today we're running a special panel where the members, the governmental officials, came here to talk to energy researchers about how to be successfully applying to available funding. So we decided to step out of our comfort zone and think beyond NSF. So I was wondering how many of you have applied to NSF for funding? So were you successful?
I'm on my first project right now.
Got it. So this should be an opportunity for everyone to think a little bit outside of the box, think about other opportunities, collaboration opportunities, tech-to-market opportunities of bringing your innovations from the lab to the market, and as well as there will be mentions of how to engage with these agencies for everyone starting from PhD student to an established professional. So it's my pleasure to introduce the panel. I have here Elaine Ulrich of Solar Energy Technologies Office. Dr. Ulrich is a senior advisor for strategy in the solar office, and one other thing, she's helping rebuild Puerto Rico's energy infrastructure after disastrous hurricanes. Formerly, she served as a program lead dedicated to reducing soft costs of solar, and her PhD is in optical science from the University of Arizona. I have here Dr. Ellen Morris. She is a program lead at NREL. Dr. Morris is a faculty affiliate at Columbia University and is currently building up a program at NREL to expand and strengthen university partnerships that research energy questions. She's also a successful entrepreneur who funded at least 3 startups that I could find information about. And she's an ambassador at 3CE, Clean Energy Education and Empowerment Initiative. Next we have Jeffrey Atkins. Jeff is a senior economist at the office of the chief economist of NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Formerly, Jeff Atkins was part of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, where he served for 22 years according to his LinkedIn. Jeff is the editor of the Journal of Ocean and Coastal Economics, and he holds a graduate degree in economic geography from Southern Illinois University, Urbandale. Next we have Dr. John Primo of BOEM. He's a senior social scientist at the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, BOEM, Department of Interior. He is an ecological anthropologist with a degree from the University of Georgia, and he has been supporting BOEM for over 10 years and has been in his current position for over 6 years. How about that?
It's something like that.
Yeah. Last but not least, we have Mike Stuffman. He's a tech-to-market advisor at ARPA-E at the Department of Energy. He helps transition innovative technologies from the lab to the market, and formerly he used to work at Customer First Renewables and Pacific Gas and Electric. Mr. Stuffman holds an MBA and a Master in Science in Mechanical Engineering from MIT. So we could start in the way we're seated. So for the way the session is structured, in the beginning we'll have 10 minutes presentation from each agency introducing the priorities, the mission, potential funding mechanisms, and then we'll have a couple of minutes for questions and answers. After that, we'll be able to play a little. Who has a research idea they think could be potentially fundable? So you will have until the end of the session to think about them. And I'm sure in the audience there are people who have 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 fundable research ideas. So if you pick one and gather your courage, you could come up to the esteemed panelists and play a little bit of Shark Tank, pitching your idea and asking for feedback. It should be fun and unofficial and a way to learn numbers. Elaine, the floor is yours. We'll start your presentation. I'm Anna Evers. I'm currently at Tetra Tech. I used to be at DOE. change the order of the speaker, we'll figure out what's going on with the Elaine's file. Okay. Reload it.
So I will.
Yeah, is it okay, Elaine? I need to reload the file for some reason. Wait.
Hi everyone, my name is Ellen Morris, as Anne said. Thank you for coming. I'm a little bit different than everybody else on the panel here because National Renewable Energy Laboratory is a national lab. It's one of 17 national labs here in the U.S. And we are not necessarily a grant-making organization, and we don't necessarily, we are sort of a recipient of funds from the federal government, the private sector, industry, and others, and then we work with our various partners to conduct applied and basic research. And what NREL is really responding to is what we're seeing in global megatrends. Many of you, through the course of this conference, have heard a lot about this, but really thinking about the interaction of clean energy and an energy transformation that's happening all over the world around the expansion of the population, especially the underserved in developing countries, and access to electricity and cleaner fuels is driving, and it needs to be responding to that population growth. Food and water scarcity happening, and how to address those scarcities with access to energy, working at the agriculture, water, energy nexus, and NREL is doing a lot on that. Advanced mobility and smart mobility, alternative fuels, those are global trends where obviously energy is the underpinning to that. And what we see driving this, and again, there's been a lot of talks at the conference here around the declining price of renewables and how renewables stacks up with conventional fuels. And you know, what NREL has seen, and really we were there kind of at the start of this in the 70s when we were created by Jimmy Carter in his administration, and we were at that point called the Solar Energy Research Institute. But what we see that's happened definitely in a very short time frame from 2008 to 2017 is really a dramatic decline in solar and in utility scale solar and in wind, and driving those cost reductions very strongly from say 359 megawatts for solar in 2009 down to $50, and then similar reductions in wind from $135 per megawatt hour to $45 per megawatt hour. Capacity increases have gone upwards of almost 500%. So really, NREL is as a national lab really centered on this clean energy revolution across multiple disciplines. NREL is in the backyard of this conference. We are located in Golden, Colorado, and there is a tour of NREL tomorrow. I would highly recommend, if you're still in the area, to do that. It's quite impressive, and we have about 2,300 people working there now. Most of these are scientists, PhD scientists, and master's students. We have a lot of facilities, both for the applied and basic research. We have also tremendous number of partnerships, and those partnerships sort of span the breadth of academia, industry, and the federal government, and other national labs. The other thing is, by virtue of the fact that we're in Colorado, we have a living laboratory in our own facilities with LEED certified buildings, state-of-the-art laboratory facilities, and the like, and also, as our director likes to say, a very good work-life balance between where we live, close to the mountains for skiing, hiking, etc., but also a really wonderful work environment at NREL. As I said, NREL is really looking at the complete spectrum of clean energy. Our hallmark has really been renewable power, so solar, wind, biomass, geothermal, water, hydropower, as well as sustainable transportation, including advanced fuels, but also looking at smart mobility and behavior change around smart mobility and what that means in autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, and the like. Energy efficiency, buildings, technology, smart controls, grid integration of microgrids into the grid, and as well as cybersecurity, and that's a new and growing area for NREL. Again, it's around how do you think about all of these systems feeding into the grid, renewables and otherwise, how do you make them secure, and how do you manage those loads, as well as resiliency, and we've collaborated a lot with your office, Department of Energy, on resiliency, because we do a lot on these isolated grids and making those smart grids that are responsive to the customer's needs. So the three important things around NREL's work is around the creation of jobs, the economic growth that it's boosting in the U.S., as well as strengthening our energy security. And in terms of the jobs, we all know these figures, but anywhere from 3 to 6 million jobs are in the clean energy sector, as compared to coal, which is in the tens of thousands of jobs. So NREL is really helping to create those jobs in industry, but also coming the other way, bringing researchers to NREL to drive the innovation, so that jobs creation is also happening directly from university and industry coming to work at the lab and use our lab facilities. In terms of economic growth, we all know that as the figures I just mentioned about the growth and of the solar and wind industry, as the other renewable energy technologies, we're also seeing that those driving the economic growth. And then finally, looking at a portfolio of energy options versus one or two winners, we really look at a broader portfolio of energy options and how that will influence our energy security. So the main thing to really think about the national labs, and probably most of you are already aware of how national labs work, but really what this slide illustrates is thinking about the national lab's unique place, and the NREL's in specifically, how we are really looking at the leading edge of research to help industry and to drive market creation around some of these technologies to really make it to the market. And NREL, along with our university partners, tries to really think about how do we get over that gap from basic research to market adoption. And the reason, a lot of people ask why isn't industry doing this? And I think because most of you are researchers here or academia, you can recognize that sometimes that runway is quite long from the initial basic idea, basic research, till it really gets out into the market. So NREL has the ability to really operate in that space that allows for intellectual freedom to really explore new ideas and to have a much longer runway in terms of funding and project execution. So those breakthroughs wouldn't necessarily happen in an industry setting where the timeline might be somewhat shorter. So NREL gets about 80% of its budget from the U.S. Department of Energy, and then deploys that money for a range of research across all of those disciplines that I mentioned. We also work extensively and have in our mandate to really expand how we work with others, whether that's industry or academia. And so NREL is really driven in this way to really look at our partners in helping us advance our mission, to look at how we can support and further develop our laboratory capabilities, whether that's in the energy systems integration of the grid, renewables into the grid, or whether that's simulations happening with our supercomputer. We also want to think about leveraging the funding that we get from Department of Energy and in terms of our facilities, our expertise, our resources, and otherwise, to really make those federal dollars go further through our partnerships. And so you can see here a snapshot of the partnerships we have, and over the next 5 years, the expectation is that this will be even doubled. The program that I'm building up, and again, I was hired into NREL fairly recently to build up university partnerships, and I come from a university environment to really think about how to expand the breadth and depth of, what does that say? I don't know. Huh? 2 minutes, okay. How to expand the depth and breadth of our university partnerships. And really what we're trying to think about is the large number of partners we have, which is more than 100 universities and about $40 million of our budget going out to university partners. But how to think more strategically about how we engage with universities and how we create this organic ecosystem of a lot of innovation happening at universities, while thinking, is there a smaller cohort of universities where we can go much deeper and broader with a set of top-tier schools that we are already working with. And really what we're looking at is sort of formalizing that engagement with universities that share our mission, that are working in both basic and applied research, so across the spectrum, that have facilities that might complement what we have at NREL, whether that's a laboratory space or an area of intellectual exploration, sort of thinking about where those gaps could be filled by university. And then looking at the visibility and the network that universities can offer. And when we think of that, we think about universities as a way to bring in visiting faculty, to collaborate with our scientists, to do resource mobilization, and for, as I said, partnerships are a massive part of where we're going, and also thinking partnerships with universities who have access to different types of funding, and National Science Foundation comes to mind, and how we can grow that portfolio on basic and applied research in the National Science Foundation and other funding agencies that are represented by my colleagues here. These are some of the partners we're working with, just to show you the range of the industry. Eaton Engineering, Shell, ExxonMobil has recently signed a $100 million grant to NREL over 10 years. U.S. Agency for International Development is driving a lot of our international work, Department of Defense, ARPA-E, etc. So, as I said, this partnership ecosystem is growing at NREL. It's linked heavily to what we're doing with our DOE portfolio, but we see that as a way to expand and strengthen that partnership with DOE. And this is just our final thoughts on partnerships, really thinking about amplifying that mission. And in this photo is the CEO of Excel, and she is one of our big champions here in this region. And they really view us as a top-tier technical partner to help get things done in the utility space with Excel, which has very aggressive targets for renewable energy. So Excel is one of our leading industry partners here in this region. And we really see these partnerships, and I'm willing to talk to any students or researchers about ways for you to actively work with us, either with your students, visiting faculty, postdocs, all of those kinds of the profiles of those folks across all disciplines are definitely welcome. So please follow up with me directly if you have ideas or questions. Thanks.
have you thought about collaborations that might be related, but not specifically on renewables, but maybe more thinking like a system with oil and gas, for example, how renewables can be used, for example, in that industry?
Yes, so I would say that we think about the broader portfolio of technologies and how renewables, and certainly in a lot of our modeling and analytic work, we look at the intersection between natural gas, for instance,